and the Ita is a possibility, which I think we could see soon. Because you can also switch the number 41 to attack position, of course, to push some damage. So that's what he's going for. Because now if you get back the Jaguar from the graveyard and you normal summon your own copy of Jaguar, then this is a lot of damage and it would be enough to actually win the game. So I think Kouki is in a really good spot to take this first duel. So he is still in the line, so...
Double Jack Jaguar with Hita and Baguska.
This is more than enough. It's
36 plus 50, 54, 50.
74, yeah, 100 pretty much. So it should be enough. Let's see if... yeah, they do realize it. So Kouki wins game 1. Nice applause from the crowd. And...
does it without the Gazelle as well.
And without really getting a whole lot of Salamander cards.
This is really, if you had any doubts about the favorite for our colleagues and Japanese friends, now you don't doubt him. Like he managed to activate a Desire, banish his only copy of Gazelle, and still found a way to win, drawing triple mind control going first. So it is not something you see every day, and very, very well played by him.
That was a clunky hand that he turned into some real action there. That was great play by Kosaka.
Yes.
That's part of why you have to practice a lot. Is you have to get those cards and not just be like, yeah, no, I can't do anything. You have to figure out what you can do, not even if it's not what you want to do.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go to the side decks where things do get a little different. So both, as we were saying, we're maining a lot of cards already for the mirror match, but they do add a few. What was the most interesting for me, especially in Ching deck, is that his main deck is very focused on multiple copies of cards. His side deck, almost all of one-offs, which is something you don't see every day. Billy agreed with me earlier on that it is something that he likes, just to see different copies of cards. But for example, he decided to only play one Super Polymerization when that card is very impactful in this matchup. So maybe that decision will go back to him. So
I guess he already has one Fusion of Fire, which is kind of like a second copy for the
absolutely, yeah.
On a lot of times for the one-offs, one reason you might do it is if you have 6 different cards that can interact with something, but they all have you can only use this effect once per turn written on them. So you might need a bunch of similar effects, because if you drew multiple copies of a single card, you wouldn't be able to play them both in one turn. But if you draw 2 copies of 2 different cards, like say an Ash Blossom and a Ghost Ogre, you could use them both, and it improves your overall hand quality.
It's interesting. If you have this situation where you have lots of one-offs in your side deck, would you leave the Pot of Desires in, or do you start thinking about taking it out?
I mean, I think you take into consideration the fact that you have Pot of Desires when you build the side deck. So since they're not engine cards, you're not really afraid to banish the one-offs. It is probably just similar to what Jerome was saying. If you play multiple copies of the same card with restrictions and you have draw effects, you're more likely to draw multiples, and then they are not that good. When you have all these one-offs, you can actually use it very safely and get the best of both worlds, we can say. And that's what's going to happen. He's probably putting in his Imperial Order, Super Polymerization, and Ghost Bell, which are all one-offs he has in his side decks for different purposes. So,
if you're watching at home, one thing to think about when you're using Pot of Desires is you got to think about whether you're trying to draw one specific card or one card out of a group of cards. If it's a group of cards, then you can almost treat all of them as whatever single card you're looking for. And that alters the math. It makes it safer to run a card like Pot of Desires.
Yeah, otherwise you end up going the safer route of just play free of everything.
That's sometimes a possibility. In this case, of course, they have to respect the restrictions. And in this deck, it is more of a fact of there are that many engine cards, you cannot really go above it. So if you already have your combos going on, you keep the Desires, you thin your deck for the Gazelle and the Sanctuary, and then you hope to draw traps or end traps with it. Otherwise, if you did not have engine cards, then it would have been any other cards. Why not risk it and just try and get into your combos? And it is working out, because both of them are playing Desires right now.
Strong card from release.
Just getting the last minute shuffle before we jump into Game 2 of this best of 3 for the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championships 2019.
There is also a world in which Ching actually picks the second to caught his opponent off guard, but it would need to be very brave to do so. And it is something that I do like, because first of all, they don't expect it, and they side cards that are going to be useless going first. So Let's see if he decides to go for that line.
Much more balanced hand on Kosaka's side this time around.
He does have the Gazelle, so no more risks of getting that away.
Now it's safe to play the Desires.
Absolutely. And he really is good at drawing his mind controls. He has 2 more copies this game, so 5 mind controls just in basically 10 or 15 minutes is, you gotta feel sick if you're Ching. So
This time, though, if you're going second, it might be a little better than last time.
absolutely. So very good hand on both sides, I gotta admit. So it seems like he is starting. So
Thinking very carefully about what's his normal summon going to be.
yeah, he has a few options. The thing is, when you have Foxy like this, you always wonder, should I use the effect? And I think in his case, it might be the correct decision just because to have less downside with the Desires, he is actually maining multiple copies of all of the Salamangreat Traps cards, which makes the Foxy significantly more consistent. Let's see.
There it is. There's Foxy. Asking, are you going to activate that?
Yeah. He doesn't activate it. It is not surprising because it allows you. The only concern I had is that if you have the will, you do not need this. But if you do not have another extender, then you don't want to use the effect just because you're going to use the one in graveyard once you get to the Sanctuary. So
Link summons for Salamangreat Bailings. Link materials for that are just 1 level 4 lower Cyberse monster. So a vast majority of the Salamangreats work with it. Or other Cyberse monsters like Lady Debug.
Yeah, very, very good card. A perfect opener.
So now, as we were saying, he's probably just going to activate either the Sanctuary on the Will, enabling the Foxy to discard either Falco or Spinny and just start playing it out. Unfortunately, there is an impermanence in Kouki's hand, which will most likely be used on the Stalio when he tries to get the Gazelle out of the deck. So
Will of Salamangreat is activated. Gives you that extra summon once per turn, or you can cash it in for a bunch of summons all at once if you have a reincarnated Link monster. Discard Spinny to pull back Foxy from the graveyard.
And Spinny comes back up. And quick Exy summon.
And just as expected, the Stalio comes down, and I would be very surprised if the impermanence wasn't used here. So definitely thinking about it, and
Thinking about what to do as Chain Link 2 here. Rush Stalio lets you summon a Salamangreat from your deck in defense position. Also has an ability when it's sent to the graveyard as material for a Salamangreat.
just as expected, the impermanence come down. It means that Ching will not really be able to extend his plays that much this turn. So he's cut off from Gazelle, and that means it is almost impossible for him to get to an Abyss Dweller or to the Roar, for example. Luckily, he does have the Rage, which is more, as we were saying, due to the fact that he is playing a lot of traps, even Solemn Strike, which is something that we have not seen in a lot of these decks.
I kind of like the heavier traps with like the Solemns, more Rage, that sort of thing. A lot of times I feel like Salamangreat really is more of a controlling deck than an aggressive deck.
It
but,
is.
you know, what it really is something that switches almost seamlessly between the two. It's part of why its longevity is so great.
Yeah, you can definitely switch, and if you build a deck is where you have a lot of traps, but you do put the 1 copy of Fusion of Fire, you're basically building a very good control deck, but a deck that really punishes you, because every time you don't have the correct interaction, then it can easily OTK you. So it is a very good deck, and no surprise that it was essentially the most represented decks for all of the past months ever since it was released. So
In North America, at least, it was about 25% of the field at all of the major events.
yeah.
Next closest deck was only around 12.
And here we go for the reincarnation Sunlight Wolf.
Mandatory here because of course he needs for the Rage in his hand, and he's gonna use the second effect of the Will, which is the rarest one, I'd say. You usually first turn at least use the other one, but it can tribute itself to check the link rating of a Salamangreat you control, and you can special summon in defense position monsters up to the rating. But here it makes sense because, as you're seeing, it didn't have another Salamangreat spell and trap in the graveyard, so by doing this, he puts more monsters on the field, and he gets the will back. So pretty good opening here, even through the impermanence.
It basically cost you nothing in that case. Got rid of the will, got the will back.
Absolutely. So a Foxy is picked up. It's a good start, honestly. His hand is looking quite good, and the only card he has to play around is really the Rage. That's sad. And the Mind Control is a very good starting point to do that.
Checks, take a look in there. There is a Balinx that can be banished to protect Salamangreat monsters, or cards rather, from being destroyed.